I think when people see $5 on a poster, they're like, oh, this is a real show. There's some little thing that clicks in your head where you're like, oh no, this is more legit.
You're listening to Comedy Ghost Town, where we investigate why Albuquerque, New Mexico has no designated stand-up comedy club. My name is Sarah Kennedy. Have you ever heard of sentiment analysis? It's the process of figuring out opinions expressed in a piece of text in order to determine whether an audience's attitude toward a particular topic is positive, negative, or neutral. There are a lot of tools online that you can use to measure sentiment analysis. For today's episode, I visited the website monkeylearn.com/sentiment-analysis-online, and I typed a few terms in. Then the tool stretched out across the whole internet, found all the words written about the term, and slapped a percentage on the results, indicating how positively these concepts were viewed by people online. Stand-up comedy, 74.5% positive. But stand-up comedy with a hyphen between stand and up, so stand-up comedy, 61.1% positive. I guess people like hyphenated comedy just a little less. Albuquerque stand-up comedy, 74.6% positive. Albuquerque comedy, 77.1% positive. Now, when you compare that with a topic more far-reaching, like say, I don't know, I'll just pick something at random, like Taylor Swift, who comes in at 76.4% neutral, it would look like Albuquerque comedy is sitting pretty in the minds of the niche community that it's part of. However, one of the biggest gaps when analyzing sentiment is that you can only measure what's being talked about, and there's nothing to pull from people who never talk about it or have no awareness of the topic at all. Since the city has no centralized hub for comedy, there's a concern that comedy is out of sight and out of mind for people here, which it's totally understandable. Remember in episode 1 when AMarie Castillo brought up her experience with this at local shows?
When I've done shows here too, like more than half, usually half the crowd has never even been to a stand-up comedy show.
Another issue that comes with not having a home for stand-up comedy in town is that most of the stage time in town comes in the form of an ambush show, or a show that starts up in the middle of a bar or restaurant space that already has customers in it, who may or may not be aware that comedy was set to happen that night. I have a very vivid memory of starting up a show in a downtown bar, and the moment I started my hosting duties, a lady turned to her friends and over the whole crowd exasperatedly said, "Oh, I hate comedy." And then she proceeded to flip me off as her and her whole table left the restaurant. I got a feeling that woman wasn't going home to write a glowing review of the comedy in town, or honestly, anything about comedy at all that could be analyzed. She probably just walked down to another bar and proceeded to have a regular comedy-free night out with her friends. While ambush shows can sometimes be a tough situation for performers, it also makes them tough, as you'll recall Buck D mentioning a few episodes ago.
If you can make that room be engaged, laughing, paying attention, in spite of people drinking, people talking at the bar and all that, once you get to the comedy club, you know how easy that is? That's what I learned. I was like, what? We live in a cheat code. We live in a cheat code.
When you have to fight for laughs, you approach the strategy to get them with more focus and a stronger reserve. Would a club in Albuquerque make it easier for comics to get laughs? Would a club here reflect the culture here, which you'll remember Sam Tallent said is full of
tough, rough, scrabble people?
If we got more people coming out for comedy, would it pop a bubble that the current comics perform in, making it harder to get laughs? Would it win over more and more people and lead to a population more educated and appreciative of comedy overall? Is there a third option it could be that I'm not seeing, but I'm referencing because lists are always better in threes? Hard to say. Comedians trade jokes for laughs, but there's subtextual communication going on in the transmission too. Norms are being established. Expectations are being set and then subsequently missed or met. Understanding is being requested on both sides. Sometimes I wonder if it would just be easier if comedians just cut through the subtext and were able to make requests of their audiences directly. So I went back out to a local open mic, and I asked comics what they wish audiences knew about comedy before they came to shows. In the next clips, you'll hear from comedians Carla Vasquez, Chuck Parker, and Trip Stelnicki, who shared their thoughts.
Specifically, even just in any comedy show, I would say if they don't want to be a part of it, sometimes I have had friends, I'll be like, if you want to sit in front, but they might talk to you. And if they do, don't take it personally. I would say to anybody going to see a show, don't take anything personally. A, if they talk to you on stage, or B, in jokes in general. And that's one of the 4 agreements, right? Don't take it personally. I don't know, alienating the comedian in some sort of way. Also shows here in town. There's even things like at open mics earlier tonight. Sarah Kennedy was on stage, and someone next to me, oh yeah, I've heard the name. I was like, yeah, she's like a godmother of comedy. And maybe it's how you might be like, oh, don't do that. But it's cool in that way to talk to strangers who might not know, to be like, hey, we do have a scene here. And we have some strong talent here, and we're all like working in this together. Do your best. That's another 4th agreement. Do your best to have fun. Wait, hold on. Be impeccable. As comedians, we need to be impeccable with our words. And audience, please also don't make assumptions. Even if we say a word that might be triggering in today's society, wait for the joke to end, and then maybe have a judgment. Because then you're stopping yourself from fun, and I think that's a big thing. Another thing I would say also, I'm almost done. Also, as a person here, only talk to the comedian if they're talking to you. Please.
Stripper rules.
Stripper rules. Yeah, don't touch unless, and even then, don't really answer the questions, whatever, but it's not about you. I'm sorry. Yes, we're trying to make you laugh, but don't take over the show, because the comedian a lot of times has a very planned set, and they might have enough time to veer, but sometimes you're messing up their set, which is then messing up for the rest of the audience. So please be respectful of comedians and other people in the audience.
Silence is golden. You could probably talk to your friend after the show. Like anytime, like before or after the show that is not happening, especially during the show, especially if you're right up front. And if you're right up front, these are like the cardinal sins. If you're right up front and you're talking, or you're looking at your phone, or you're just generally not paying attention, or you're sitting there with a pissy look on your face with your arms folded. So for whatever reason, that seems to be like a popular thing for people that want to sit in front and just express what a good time they're not having. So I wish that wouldn't happen. To each his own. I would tell them, don't think things personally. Shut up. You're not helping. You may think that you're helping sometimes, and usually alcohol will make you think that you're helping. That seems to be like an idea that everybody gets. That alcohol gives everybody that idea, but it's totally not the case.
What do they think that they're doing that's helping?
They are usually calling out in the middle of your set. They're remarking on something that you just said. So, we're having a conversation. It's a back and forth. They don't know that it's a prepared bit. And I've just gone into the setup, and we have not got to the punchline yet, but you are now loudly, drunkenly commenting on the setup. Is distracting. It's distracting for the person that's on stage, and it's distracting for the people that are around, because now we've interrupted the rhythm. But no, that does not help. It does not make the joke better.
I would say that in my view, the best kind of audience is a patient audience. And that is not always, I think the best comics they don't make you wait. Like, they don't need you to be patient, but I love an audience that's like willing to listen through a few setups and sort of let you build, which I think at its best, you have people who can just bring you along right away. But I also, as like an audience that's willing to put in the effort of just almost like, it's almost an act of faith where you're sort of, and the comic has to earn that for sure. And that can happen in a million different ways in the first like 10, 20 seconds, whether it's body language, some off the cuff thing, whatever it is. But an audience that's willing to just let a few pitches go by and wait for something that's not going to write somebody off and you get that at a good showcase or anywhere where people are paying, obviously. They're here to see it. But I think New Mexico I think it's rare where you have a room that isn't that, but I think it's the more patient and like generous, the generosity of a crowd, the better everyone is gonna feel, comics and audience. There's just an energy that like is self-sustaining when you have a crowd that's like, keep giving it to me.
Awesome. So actually, you bring up a really good point, and we were talking about it before you came outside too. I guess it's a two-parter question. Number one, do you think that audiences are more attentive and laugh more when they pay?
Yes, for sure.
The second question is why?
They for sure are. The Tumbleroot show that I've been producing is a perfect example of that, because when I started that, I was debating, it's $5 at the door. No, nothing online, it's not fancy, cash card, whatever, it's very simple. And it's not even there's no net revenue, there's no spreadsheet. It's just because I think when people see $5 on a poster, they're like, oh, this is a real show. There's some little thing that clicks in your head where you're like, oh no, this is more legit. $5 is more legit than free. $10, you'll get a different kind of crowd. There's some riffraff with $5. $10, probably not. It's just the audience's expectation is set by a million different little factors. And I think just even a token $5 is, I'm here to see a show, as opposed to a free open mic level or even just a free bar show. If I go to a free show and it's not my thing, I'll walk out. And if I paid $5, I might still walk out, but I will give it another chance. I'll give it a few more, chances.
When we explore why Albuquerque doesn't have a comedy club and what it would take for them to have one and stay in one, so much of the investigation has been into Albuquerque and what it's seemingly lacking. But maybe there's something at the core of the comedy club business model, which multiple guests have mentioned.
A comedy club that's at the end of the day all about selling drinks and chicken fingers or whatever.
Push the chicken tenders, that kind of stuff.
So many comedy clubs have the 2-drink minimum.
And that is the reason why comedy clubs close. And again, you have a 2-drink minimum. That means it is about the alcohol. It doesn't really matter if the comics are good or not.
And maybe that doesn't allow for enrichment on the side of the performers or the audience. Maybe we dodged a bullet by not having a traditional club exploit both sides of the equation to stay open no matter what it takes for the last decade plus. If a comedy space does open in Albuquerque, hopefully it'll tackle this dead on and be a space where everyone sees value. This has been Comedy Ghost Town, produced and hosted by comedian Sarah Kennedy. If you'd like to find out more information about the podcast or me, you can find out more at my website, sarahkennedy.com/comedyghosttown.